Hey everyone, Rolando here, owner of leaguetilts, also known as League That I'd Like to See, and today I'm going to be reviewing a response video to one of my reworked gameplay concepts posted recently by Azzapp, consistent Challenger League player and best Vel'Koz in Europe. First I'll be offering my thoughts on his video, before moving to discuss the post-release balance adjustments that I've landed on, and have posted on my writing blog. It's up now. If you haven't seen Azzapp's video, however, I recommend you watch that first, and he's awesome, so he deserves it.
I only find the tweet that the guy out to me. His name is Rolando Tate. I don't know if he has any affiliation to the page. He did this. Vel'Koz Mid-Scope abilities update with anything. No one's asking for this. There is what? Vel'Koz generates a stack of insight. Each stack successfully triggers organic damage mechanism which increments monster. Each stack gains a stack of insight restores health and so weak organic gains. Storing ability power and healing equaling to the damage which will go from start a game like 50 to later on like 500-600. That's a bit much. Also against any chamber epic monster.
Okay, so first thing here, 3 ability power, pi, 3.14. More on that later. Actually, I'm going to wait till the end of the video, or his video, to get around to that. But there's actually a little bit more as to why I chose a number higher than just one.
So you can, like, technically, if you're running past Herald or Baron or Dragon, you can just dump it and get 3 AP. Does 3 AP sounds much? I mean, I don't know. In my brain 3 sounds much. I mean, one ability for Vigar is 1 AP, but that's Vigar. The entire kit is designed around that. Vel'Koz has pretty good base damages. Anyway, I have probably better one. Not this. Flat AP is always boring. I have an idea there. If you proc organic deconstruction against somebody, like True Pass, like 3 stacks,
Okay, so flat AP is about boring. However, true damage is target agnostic, and true damage ignores all kinds of resistances, whether that's armor or magic resist. Getting access to more of it makes it so that your damage scales harder, if that makes sense. True damage is countered by health, because if all that matters are the numbers itself, then stacking health is what counters, makes number go bigger. But yeah, let's continue. I'll get back to that later.
Okay, so that makes sense. New passive research. This research uses the primary multiplies an additional stack of organic deconstruction. And the slow go under decays. Are you kidding me? 2.6 seconds or like 70% slow? Nah, you don't even have to apply a second stack. This amount of slow would just paralyze people. This would be 20 iteration straight up. That's a bit broken. Like, I'm gonna try to minimize.
That's the goal.
So it doesn't go like overboard. So the first one says 30 people take 2 100% base. In this one, you can just keep it that you do extra damage to research targets based on their missing code. That's all. You can do that. And then you can do the slider of fucking number to make it make sense. Just slow the reach, I probably would fuck it. It might be too personal. Cooldown for reach are removed. Not only normal static cooldown 1.5 seconds required between casts. Wait, you can cast it. And Vel'Koz also changed to fully at all ranks. Goes for challenge stack mechanic. Whoa, so you're spamming riffs. Additional functions against research. Okay. For each stack warrior Vel'Koz 3 by 40. That would be very fun. It would make his gameplay mostly trivial because everyone will go tier arcanes and just spam W for it. You'll always get right no matter what.
The point that you raised there towards making general gameplay, especially in the early game, I think is what he meant, trivial, because you're just going to stack things and play for late game with tier and archangels, is a really good point. And it's actually something I addressed in my post-release patch adjustments, because I figured that I don't think I balanced heavily enough away from extreme abuse cases, with those being just build tank GG in the late game specifically. And I think I was too focused on, yes, let's skew the thing towards the minigame, the gameplay, towards the minigame. And I'm okay with Manning stacking Spellcaster kind of becoming his niche aside, or taking away from his niche of artillery mage long range, because he doesn't get directly rewarded for building mana, and he doesn't scale with it, like, say, Rise. He doesn't have any percentages or any ratios. We'll get more into that later when we look at the rework, though.
Additional functions against research. Okay. For each stack warrior Vel'Koz 3 by 40. That would be very fun. It would make his gameplay mostly trivial because everyone will go tier arcanes and just spam W for victory. You'll always get right no matter what. Each time Vel'Koz damage the research damage ability remaining cooldown life from duration reduced by 1.5%. That's not much. That's like 1 second. It's not bad. If you land like your E and the W, then you can lower it 2 seconds, and then you would do another W, so it'll be like 3 seconds, probably maybe 4 on a full combo. Not that terrible. Projectile status look. That's all we need. That is all we need. That's all I wanted in my life. I just wanted to be able to projectile. Yeah, this will be fucking insane.
Yeah, so W and E are now not projectiles in my mind. W, you're opening up a portal. How is that blocked by wind wall or a magical ice door? Obviously, fantasy League is a fantasy game, but it states he's opening a portal, and this dude is using like void energy and things that are not of this world. I don't think it makes sense for it necessarily to be countered, especially if his whole entire kit revolves around projectiles. It's just not fair. Think of it as a quality of life adjustment. Even then, Yasuo, even Braum, they still have dashes to avoid things with. So I think it is going to be a huge buff overall, but I think it's the kind of buff that where he's already strong, he's not getting any stronger, and where he's weak, he's just getting a little bit of help.
Okay, it's like disruption. You pass research against research targets, that means they're also paralyzed for 75 seconds. As well, successfully getting a research target ability was all stacks be consumed, restoring mana based on other stacks. What? So it's like a cast in W recovery mechanic almost. So if you have like, you cast like 4 W's, the mechanic goes up to 160, you hit E on a research target, and then that will give you back 160 mana. Paralyzing usage of the target's ability cool.
Yeah, so that's getting changed. That has been changed as of right now. I've already posted my response to this in my rework. A bit too simple. I think that having a mana refund that is a skill check is good. Like Kassadin has to get in and auto a target, but Kassadin, that's his whole playstyle. Vel'Koz's playstyle is to sling spells and combo them. So I think that resetting W's stack so that he goes back to having +0 mana for each individual cast is perfectly fine. But it's a bit too solved in terms of, especially that playstyle of just stack tier and Rod of Ages and late game, we're good. So instead, I opted for putting the mana refund as a percentage on his Q on kill as opposed to the flat. A bit more intentional, I think. I think it also retains the identity of now Q and W are my offensive spells and E is my combo spell and also utility spell because now E doesn't do damage.
So you hold it for a special period of time. Oh shit, that's actually not a bad unique mechanic. That's not poorly broken. I like that. Protect.
Paralyze. So Paralyze, I'm going to reiterate that. CC effect that I came up with, have a separate essay about it. I think it's really cool. Basically, if you're paralyzed, your cooldowns frozen in time. You're paralyzed for 1 second, cooldowns don't move for 1 second. Only for your abilities. Nothing, not like summoner spells, that would be too strong.
Status. Love it. Mana store 40 times number max. So max on 6 times 240 mana. Ult. New passive against reason being deals good instead and slow back conditional. I like the additional because the slow on the ult is terrible. I think against the research target, the slow should be enhanced. That would make sense. Or like as we suggested before, if enemies are moving towards you, the slow numbers are different because you're like moving through the fucking, you're moving through the disintegration rate. Like your skin flakes are full. You know, your atoms, you're just deionizing whatever. You know, you're ruining. In summer it isn't broken. Yes, I like it. But in summer it isn't broken. You would like this would have to be super simplified. This is literally the ideas that I talked about, like unique effects based on the research, based on the ability, which you kind of use, but not based on your tropes.
And so part of this version 2.1, this next version, this patched Vel'Koz, changed around a bunch of things. I'm going to go into that in a moment. Because, right, I still want him to build damage. I don't want him to be a tank at all. I want him to be an artillery mage. I want him to be fragile. If you get to him, he dies. The healing is intended to circumvent what I feel like are abuse cases for counterplay. Lots and lots of unfairness. As I said, abuse cases in counterplay. I think that's a feeling, but I think a better way to encapsulate that feeling is unfairness. So yeah.
Projectile status with his abilities will make him a S tier mid laner. He was every single matchup, no matter what. And I like the R extra slow. Extra slow and R is pretty fucking good. This is a very minor thing. Additionally, always grant a true sight to research targets. So if you're research something in the middle, like across the wall or the vision, you get sight. That's a really unique thing and cool that it really misses. Like that thing is missing for Vel'Koz. I like it, but
Okay, so moving on to 2.1, version 2.1 of this rework. Revisiting my Vel'Koz rework for Azzapp. So here are the goals for the original goals for the rework. Azzapp didn't cover this in the video, so I'm going to cover it now because I feel like it's important to understand, like, especially like when Riot makes changes, it's often really easy to just get really upset with things that you don't agree with. But oftentimes it can give you an angle or an avenue to not feel that way, or at least understand better why it was made, and maybe even then reformulate your thoughts around that when you understand where they're coming from and maybe what data they're looking at. I'm not looking at any data. I don't work at Riot. I'm just someone who's really enthusiastic about design and really like League of Legends as a design space. So my goals for this rework, number one, are I want to find ways to add strength without necessarily just giving Vel'Koz more damage. And the thing about that is because, well, true damage is like the strongest form of damage in the game. It ignores resistances, meaning you can't itemize against it. Caveat there, asterisk. I spoke of flat health earlier. Because it's easier to acquire health than it is to acquire resistances, but resistances are what generally make health valuable, especially against non-true damage sources. So if you have 1,000 health and 1,000 armor, you effectively have, 50%. So you effectively have 200 health, 2,000 health against physical damage, because 100 armor reduces 50% of the damage that you take. But against true damage, you still only have 1,000 health. So against physical damage, you have to take 2,000 damage to die, assuming you're not healing or anything like that. But you still only need to take 1,000 for true damage, meaning that true damage does like literally 200% more damage in this case than physical damage, even though it's the same amount of damage as the amount of health that you have. So in order to counter that, if you got 1,000 more health, meaning you had 2,000, well, yes, it would still take double the amount of armor to kill you, but then you still have, in the game at least, you have options for armor penetration, for instance, and that will generally bring down the amount of damage, physical damage that it takes to kill you faster than true damage does, because true damage doesn't scale outside of scaling with its own ratios, but doesn't scale also like items and other system mechanics within the game. If you don't understand that, just think of Fiora. Fiora's passive, vitals, percent health. You can't count. It's literally uncounterable. So, 2, make research the passive. Do more outside of just, enhancing his ultimate. Because I always felt that research was a really cool mechanic that was added in the mage update years ago. I think it was 2018. Really cool that it just enhances what Vel'Koz wants to do, which at that time what they stated was that he wants to just apply research and then melt things with his ult. But I felt like if that were generally the case, then his ult would have in 2023 would have had a reset mechanic where it's I don't know, maybe every time he kills a research target he gets huge refund on his ult, kind of like Katarina. Not like Katarina, but specifically for the ult. Because if the whole goal is apply this thing just to make this thing do more damage, then the kit would have been redesigned specifically just to make him be able to do the second thing as often as possible as a reward for doing the first thing. Make sense? So since that isn't the case, I want the research to feel more integrated as a passive throughout the rest of his kit, and towards that, that is giving players more ways to feel powerful and more ways to play towards difficult win conditions brought about by being an artillery mage. So I also want to reward more skillful play. Vel'Koz is one of those champions that I've watched montages, I've watched Azzapp over the years, and I've seen some of the coolest just either outplays or this isn't the case of the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's the case of you can put if you're putting 200% of your effort and your time invested into this character, you're going to have all the tools you need to combat every situation outside of just maybe you shouldn't have picked a magic damage champion in the mid lane or as a support. Maybe you should have picked something tankier in general. If you're in the right scenario to be playing this champion, you're going to have everything you need to achieve success. And that doesn't necessarily have to come with counterpicking other characters or just being abusive in and of yourself as a design. But with Aurelian Soul, he's just going to get stronger as time goes on, and that's his win condition. And I think that giving more champions their own specific win conditions can be a potentially healthy design space for the game, because it gives players room to exercise their fantasies in ways that don't impede upon the fantasies of others, I guess the way to put it. For instance, if I'm playing Aurelian Soul at 40 minutes, as long as I'm farming the way I should be, I'm going to be strong. But I'm not strong in a way that takes away from, say, for instance, the enemy Zed. The enemy Zed can always W out of my E's. The enemy Zed can always W out of my combos. The enemy Zed can always dodge everything and still kill me. But for the job that I'm supposed to do as a battle mage, as an Aurelian Soul, I'm trying to get better and better at doing that thing. I'm not supposed to be able to 100 to 0 the Zed. That's not what that matchup's supposed to be about. I'm a battle mage who might have some health. I probably have a lot of mana, but I don't have 200 armor. I don't have all these other things. I'm supposed to die if this person gets to me, generally speaking. So I want to reward investment and reward commitment and skillful play. That is by increasing agency. The idea here is that once the player has passed the skill test of landing skill shot based abilities, they are allowed with doing more than just damage, because there's already enough damage in the game. 4, Vel'Koz's ult is the thing you play him for. Frankly, I don't think if Vel'Koz had another ability that people would like him as much. Frankly, I think it's just really cool. I think it's just really awesome. It's this highest moment, and the mage update. I don't have the link here. I probably have it somewhere else. Let's see. I want to put this in the game or in the video because this is important. So this is old League of Legends website. This is a big deal. So it must have been 2018 because it has the new map. But newer players won't even know this happened. There was a point where essentially all the major mages in the game, a lot of them, just got all of their abilities changed or adjusted to make them feel more unique. And Vel'Koz is one of them because at the time his ult didn't do true damage to research targets. He didn't even have the research passive. But then it did. And that was a really big deal for me because that's kind of when I really started playing him. So, as always, lastly, make him strong, make him feel attractive, and then see where I can take away power in ways that are meaningful but don't take away from the fun. I always believe in designing for fun. Side tangent, I think that designing for ways that are anti-fun for counterplay is bad, but trying to find that balance of maximizing the fun of the person in the driver's seat and find that sweet spot where you're not taking away the power of everyone else is what you should do. And I think that can work with designing for what is this person's strengths, what are this person's weaknesses. Okay, let's make the strengths as clear as possible, not as strong as possible, but as clear as possible, and then making the weaknesses as large as possible without absolutely crippling that character. In this case, Vel'Koz doesn't have any dashes, so has to aim everything. That is counterplay. That is so much counterplay. And if you've never played Vel'Koz, you cannot argue with that because you don't know how painful that can be. So, TLDR of each individual change for each individual ability. Passive, compared to version 2.0, aka this one, my first one that Azzapp read and responded to, the heal from Insight has been lowered to 50% at all ranks. So, Organic Deconstruction does 50% of your AP as true damage, plus a base ratio. So let's say you have 100 AP, that means this is doing plus 50%, plus 50 true damage to its base ratio. Insight, meaning whenever you trigger Organic Deconstruction against an enemy champion, is it just champions? I don't remember if I changed it. Enemy champion or epic monster. So whenever you proc Organic Deconstruction, meaning your 3-hit passive, you're going to gain 3 AP and heal for 50% of the damage that you do. So in terms of AP ratios, that's going to be 25% total. So on average, this means just directly, he's going to be healed for 50% less than before. Before he just healed for 100% of the damage that he did. And Azzapp mentioned that, like that's too much later in the game, which is why you would want to just build tank because you get free heals, essentially. That's pretty much it. But that wasn't the case. And now, against monsters, meaning he can get Insight against enemy champions and epic monsters. Against monsters now, it always is reduced to 25%. As well, gaining stacks of Insight within 3 seconds reduces the heal to 25% against all targets. So the first time I do Organic Deconstruction's damage, I heal 50% of the damage that I dealt. And then, every time after that, within 3 seconds, I'm going to heal for 50% of that, meaning 25% heal total. And that's refreshing every time I do it. So if I wait 4 seconds, then it'll go back to 50, that's fine. But against monsters, it's always going to be 25%. Meaning after you damage the monster, it's always going to be 25%, even if you go back to damaging the enemy champion, as long as it's within 3 seconds. So that's that. To Q, so compared to the last version, the slow primary bolt removed. Yeah, that was too much. That was very 2023. That was hotfix nerf worthy. It decays with duration. So it's not the case that if you get hit by the 2 bolts that fly out first, that you're slowed by 70% over 2.6 seconds at max rank. Way too much, I agree. I feel like it was kind of an oversight on my part, but that's not really totally honest with me because that's something I was really excited about. I was like, yeah, like, I agree. You shouldn't get hit by that ability. Like, that's just dumb. Don't get hit. Like, it's so hard to hit that in the first place. If you get hit, it's your fault. So, like, let's reward Vel'Koz for doing that. Then I thought about it, and it's like, well, the reward for Vel'Koz hitting that ability doesn't really... The incentive for using that ability isn't in hitting the primary bolt. The incentive, the cool thing about it is the split, is the geometry. And that's the skill check. The skill check is, yeah, I can hit a straight line skill shot. That anyone can do that. A lot of champions have that. But the uniqueness from the champion comes from having the split, the 90-degree angle that creates the Pythagorean theorem arrangement. So I'm nerfing the primary bolt from having no decaying slow, but it still applies 2 stacks of deconstruction. However, the secondary bolts now have their damage increased. Sorry, they still have their damage increased, it's just changed now. Before it was based on missing health. Now it's basically the further you are away from Vel'Koz, when the secondary bolt hits you, the more damage it's going to do. Period. No missing health, whatever. And the way that's calculated is, let's say you're at, what is it here? Let's say you're at the minimum of 1100 range. So the bolt splits at max range, and that is 1100 range away from Vel'Koz, and then it goes 90 degrees. So from 0 to 1100 degrees, you're going to be taking 17.7% more damage from that ability when it splits. Sorry. And then at max range, 1595, meaning the farthest that the bolts go away from Vel'Koz specifically, because again it's a triangle, you're going to be taking 31.4% more damage. And why? Well, because 3.14 pi. I did the math. It's not really that much. It sounds like a lot, but it's just this much AP. Oh, yeah, I didn't even do that. That's totally wrong. Changing that. That is 118.26% AP, which is like a lot, but not so much for single target ability. A lot of champions have things like that, especially like on their ults. And again, Vel'Koz doesn't do damage on his E anymore, so that's a big deal. This is, sorry, 105 and 118%. And yeah, the numbers are come from pi, and then the square root of pi. Really simple. And thematic. Moving on to W. So compared to 2.0, really, really simple. The cooldown refund on Lifeform Disintegration Ray, which is the ult, it's just changed to a flat percent based off of your base cooldown. So 1.5% of the base cooldown every time it does damage to a research champion. That's really simple. So at max rank, it's 80. Well, basically, yeah, Azzapp is right. It's going to be like at 3%, 2.4 seconds. Not a lot, but that's happening every time you hit both pieces of your W. And since your W is your primary deconstruction stacking mechanic now, you're going to be wanting to be using it and hitting it a lot. So this just makes it so that your ult is up more often as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing already successfully. I went around a lot with deciding what I wanted to be the research passive for W, Void Rift, but I kind of decided on this because I wanted everybody to just have something that plays with research, even if it's like just trivial. It's not actually trivial because again it gives you your ult, which is like your highest damaging ability, even with fuse buffs. But it rewards. It doesn't add like a new dynamic. It just rewards. It enhances what you're already intended to be doing from a design standpoint. So yeah, quality of life there. Does more cooldown reduction actually compared to refunding based off of remaining percentage. E, so this has a little bit of a paragraph here, but it's not really that big of a deal. Trust me. So compared to version 2.0, successfully hitting a research target, this ability no longer consumes Void Rift stacks and restores mana. It does consume Void Rift stacks. It resets them to 0. It just doesn't restore mana anymore. Instead, it resets stacks, and to compensate for the loss in pre-level 6 DPS, because he no longer does damage. That's not new from this one. That's even back here with the other rework. He doesn't do damage. Boom, boom. It's supposed to be just like Talia W, Rework W. The overall utility of this ability is being increased by way of a lowered cooldown. Currently on live, it's I think 16, scaling down to 12 seconds. That doesn't sound right. It has to be more than that. But I've decided to, before, flatten it to 12 seconds only in the previous version. But then I was like, that's still a lot. And I checked Talia's cooldown, and Talia's cooldown is, I think, 24, scaling down to 8 seconds. So I was like, this ability does no damage. It also needs to, is useful for applying deconstruction stacks. And, it's literally Vel'Koz's only safety outside of his slow, which is, again, you shouldn't get hit with that. You really shouldn't. It's really up to the Vel'Koz to make that hit you. And if it's hitting you more often than not, that's really your fault. So just again giving you a little bit more safety here through utility, not damage. Against research targets, this is where the paralyze is coming in. You're paralyzed, meaning your cooldowns are frozen in time for 0.75 seconds. Don't get hit. And that's it. Except for the ult. So this is really simple. Version 2.0. Base slow was 20, scaling up to 40% if you were researched. So 20% throughout the whole entire beam, just like live, scaling up to 40%, actually not scaling, just 40% if you are researched. And now I'm lowering the base to 15%, meaning across the whole entire beam. The lowest slow you can get is 15%, and the highest slow you can get to 30%. And the way that works is based off work proximity. Just like Azzapp said, it would be thematically really cool and make a lot of sense if the closer you are to the source of the beam, the source of the energy, the source of the output that's going in one direction, the slower you get because it's energy that's going against you. So the closer you get to Vel'Koz, the more it slows you. And up in front of Vel'Koz, it's 30%, and at the farthest end, it's 15%, scaling linearly. And then against research targets, really simple, it's just doubled. So 60% right in front of him, 30% at the end. And it still has the vision passive. Again, that's only scaling for 0.3 seconds, meaning this ability ticks, I think, every 0.2 seconds. So this is just meant to outlast that, so that if you get hit, but you move out of the beam, there's 0.1 second that Vel'Koz has to adjust to try and get you back in the beam if you're still in range. Quality of life thing to go along with the true sight, not true sight. Is it true sight? Yes, true sight thing, which so that means it's revealing people in stealth because he's an eyeball that summons lasers. I'd imagine the laser's hitting you. It's not like, oh, like you can't see me. Like, no, it's a laser. It's literally light. It just quality of life, it makes too much sense to me. Again, I know it's a fantasy game, it's not supposed to make sense, but I really, really like games better when they kind of do in an in-universe sense. It just makes things just so much more fun and engrossing for me in terms of like power fantasy. So yeah, that's that. Super duper TLDR. Passive causes a heal, but it's 50% now of the damage that you do, and then even less for monsters. Q, primary bolt, no longer slows, but still applies an additional stack of passive. Secondary bolts do additional damage based off of how far you are from Vel'Koz. Additional damage just scales the total damage of the ability, so it's base plus the ratio, meaning everything gets multiplied by 17.7% at base, or 31.4% at maximum. Also, when you kill something, I think I missed it. Also, when you kill something with the bolt, you heal you restore a percent of your missing mana. I totally missed that. So, whenever Plasma Fishing kills an enemy, Vel'Koz restores a percent of missing mana, half for non-champions. Here. So, each time it kills something with each piece, there's 3 total pieces to like Passive Fishing, he restores 10%, but that's halved, so if he kills a minion, or even a monster, any monster, it's only 5%, meaning at max you can store 30% of your missing mana, or 15% versus non-champions. So this is a nerf and a buff to previously. Well, it's weird, because Vel'Koz on live can essentially restore 1.5 times the mana cost of this ability, which like isn't anywhere near like a percent of his mana pool, but actually in the early game is, because his mana pool is actually deceptively really small. Vel'Koz has a really high base mana pool, but really low scaling. He starts at I think like 500 mana up to 900, which like sounds like a lot, but it actually isn't. I can't give you a comparison off the top of my head, but like for a mage, it's actually like it's not a lot. So this makes it so that the more mana he has, the less he restores. If he has 90% of his mana, he's only going to be restoring. Okay, so let's do math right here. If he has 500 mana, which he does, he has just about 500 mana at level 2, and he uses a Q. Q is, I think, 80 mana? No, sorry, it's 40. So 500 minus 40, he has 460. He's restoring 10%. So he lost 40, right? 10% of 40 is 4. He's only getting 4 mana back on kill. But let's say he has 0 mana. He's using Q to cast his last ability, and he kills something with it. So now he has 500 mana, and he's at 0 because he's and he uses Q and he kills something. So 10% is 50, meaning he can cast this again once he kills something. Say he kills something, 3 minions. That 10% is going up to 15%, which is marginally more. But let's say somehow he's roaming bot, or his jungler's out of position, he goes to help, and he gets a triple kill with his Q. That's 30%. It's 150 mana. 150 mana means he can cast his Q and ult. And obviously, if he's stacking mana, like actually playing Rod of Ages and for Tear of the Goddess, it's going to be so much more because of the percentage. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you very, very much for reading. I would really love it if you all could let me know your thoughts in the comments of either this video or down here, down here. Here's some more of my reworks. I just recently released the Laundry rework. I really like it. Ironically, I've been working on this for I think half of a year, and Riot just decided to give her buffs, so that's cool. And also, the buff that I decided to give her, making Q slow everyone, is exactly the same that Riot gave her. So we're on the same wavelength. Maybe they will hire me someday in the future. Leave me your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please give Azzapp a like and a follow. He's a really awesome person. He's one of my favorite League content creators. Never toxic, truthfully. That's something I value very highly. That's something that League Tilts is all about. It's ironically named League Tilts because it does, but it's an acronym that stands for League that I'd like to see. Because I like to focus on the positives, because if I'm feeling overwhelmingly negative, then why am I playing? Like, why should I play if I'm not having fun? But if I'm feeling really positive, it's, it's usually because I'm focusing on the things that I enjoy. It's usually because I'm playing the way that I enjoy. It's usually because I'm doing off-meta builds, or obviously winning, but like, winning is hard in this game, It takes a lot of creativity sometimes. So why not lean into that? Again, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider joining my Patreon and following me here on Medium for more of my blogs. I post all of my reworks on Medium, but I also post them to Patreon for free, meaning you don't have to pay for Medium to read them. And that's just for me, for archive purposes. I want everyone to have free access to everything that I write, because I think it's really important to share ideas freely. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.